The Whispering Shadows. In the quiet town of Eldridge, where the fog clung to the cobblestone streets like a shroud, there was an old house perched at the edge of the woods. Locals referred to it as the Whitaker House, named after the family that vanished without a trace over 50 years ago. The tales surrounding the house had grown over the years, whispered in hushed tones around flickering campfires and shared as warnings to children. It was said that the spirits of the Whitakers lingered, bound to the house by the tragedy of their disappearance. Few dared to approach it, but for Sarah, the thrill of the unknown was too enticing to resist. She was a newcomer to Eldridge, having moved there only a month before, and she had heard the stories, every eerie detail. With a friend, Jess, she decided it was time to uncover the truth behind the legends. One chilly October evening, they made their way to the Whitaker house, flashlights in hand and hearts racing with excitement and fear. The wind howled through the trees, creating an eerie symphony that seemed to echo the warnings of the townsfolk. As they reached the front porch, the house loomed over them, its windows like dark eyes staring back, and the door creaked open as if inviting them in. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the scent of decay lingered. Cobwebs draped the corners of the rooms like ghostly curtains. They moved cautiously through the house, their beams of light dancing over peeling wallpaper and shattered furniture. The living room was a cavern of shadows, filled with remnants of a life once lived. "Look at this," Jess called out, her voice a mere whisper. She had found an old photo of the Whitaker family. The parents stood proudly behind their two children, all smiles, unaware of the fate that awaited them. The image was haunting. It felt alive, as though the eyes of the family followed them, filled with unshed tears. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a soft whisper that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. It was almost indistinguishable, like a breeze through the trees. They exchanged uneasy glances. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. Jess nodded, gripping her flashlight tighter. "Let's keep moving." They climbed the staircase, each step creaking ominously under their weight. The second floor felt colder, and the air thickened with an unnameable tension. They entered the first room on the left, a child's bedroom. It was eerily preserved, toys scattered on the floor, and a bed with rumpled sheets, as if someone had just been there. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "This place is wrong," she murmured. Just then, the whispering returned, clearer this time. It sounded like a child's voice calling out in desperation. "Help! Help me!" "Who's there?" Jess called, but her voice trembled. The whispering intensified, swirling around them like a whirlwind. Panicked, they turned to leave, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. They were trapped. Okay, just breathe," Sarah said, trying to calm herself. She rattled the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Jess pounded on the door, her fear growing. "Let us out!" Jess screamed. Then the room grew colder still. Shadows began to form in the corners, twisting and stretching, taking on a life of their own. Sarah felt a presence closing in, a suffocating darkness. The whispers morphed into cries, echoing off the walls, a cacophony of fear and pain. "Help! Help us!" the voices pleaded. In a panic, Sarah grabbed Jess's arm. "We need to find a way out." They darted to the window, but it was locked tight, the glass grimy and opaque. As they turned back to the room, the shadows coalesced into shapes, figures of a family, their faces twisted in sorrow. The mother reached out, her mouth moving silently as if trying to communicate. "What do you want?" Sarah cried, desperation filling her voice. The shadows swirled closer, and suddenly the air filled with images, frantic visions of the night the Whitakers disappeared. A storm had raged outside, and they were huddled in this very room, fear etched on their faces. The father had been searching for a way out, but the house had trapped them, sealing their fate. "Help us!" The figures pleaded, their voices merging into a sorrowful wail. Jess, tears streaming down her face, looked at Sarah. "We have to help them." "How? We can't even get out!" Sarah shouted, overwhelmed by despair. But then, amidst the chaos, something shifted within Sarah. She remembered the stories. The townsfolk believed the Whitakers needed closure. that their souls were trapped by their tragic fate. "We need to find out what happened to them," she yelled. The shadows paused, as if considering her words. Sarah and Jess focused on the father's figure, the one whose eyes seemed to plead the most. "Tell us what to do," Jess urged. The figure pointed toward the door, and suddenly it swung open with a rush of cold air. The Waichi